There we go. I think I got it to work again. No video. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's make sure. So that's where the comments will go. Mike's working. Okay, so sorry about that. I had to step out. I'm going to answer some questions that were left in that last chat that I couldn't get to. The first one was Black Barbie. Do you have tips on getting a job as a new graduate? Gosh, yeah, there's a lot of them. Let's go back to the blog. Let's see. Too many open. Let's do it this way. Let's go this way. So here's the blog, right? And let's do interview. Getting a job as a new graduate. I try to refer to my prior articles just because I put a lot of thought into those, where right now we're kind of off the cuff, and I don't want to miss anything if I can help it. So, how to be red tag. This is a helpful article if you're looking to advance and you say, hello. This is a good one for, well, what would I have to do to be a tech 2? What would I have to do to be a tech 3? I actually have job descriptions on here, and we go over them to help you understand. But I'm trying to find my articles on interviewing. There's a review of a school. During COVID, I was offering a stipend, a payment to graduates if they wanted to fill out a survey on what they liked and didn't like about their school, and was helping pay techs that way. Hello, Mr. Allen. Rad Tech interview, a Rad Tech stimulus, how to become a CT Tech. I guess I'm going to have to do this from scratch because I'm having a hard time finding, the other thing you can do when you're looking for information is go to the sitemap. Because I started out, this was back when I only had a little over 100 articles, but I was kind of listing them by topic. So we're looking for successful interview strategies. There we go. So I talk about a guy named Jackrabbit Joe in this particular article, which is a guy that I met. He was a tech, and it goes over how he got his first job. Let me go back here to, do you have tips on getting a job as a new graduate? So if you're still there, Black Barbie, I know I had to log off to go grab the kids from volleyball practice and come back, but if you're still there, let me know in the comments. But I promised I would answer your question. So what Joe did was really intelligent. Joe identified where he wanted to go work, right? So step 1 is, where do you want to work? Step 2 is, so you may identify a general region, and then you decide which hospital or a couple of hospitals you want to work at in that region. I also did another article on how I got a job. I decided I wanted to move back to Oklahoma, where I grew up, and get a job there, and I laid out the whole strategy on how I did that. And I had that article published. Let's see. How to decide on a location and get there, 2013. So let's see. I'll have to research that one a little more, because what I did in that particular case was I identified the town I wanted to live in. I identified what the local hospital was. And then I went on LinkedIn and I started looking up people who worked at that hospital and connecting to them on LinkedIn. And then through that connection, I would start a conversation like, I'm actually from that area, my family's from there. You say whatever you need to say, but start making that connection. I said, I used to live there. I'm trying to move back there. I'm hoping to find a job. I'm an x-ray tech. Here's what I do. If you know of any job openings or anyone I could talk to, that would be great. And through that methodology, I got in touch with somebody through LinkedIn that said, "Hey, there's this position. Contact this person, and I'll let them know you're going to be contacting them." And it just kind of opened the door for me, and I ended up getting that position. And I lived there for a little while and got a really great shift. But back to Jackrabbit Joe, what he did was he identified where he wanted to go and started coming up. I think he probably called first. It's been a few years now, and it's all in this article. I will take that link and I will post it in the comment section down here. And I don't think I can post it in the old. Maybe I can. Nope. That chat's closed in the old one. But just trying to do 15 things at once here. So Joe called us and said, "Hey, I'm in school. I'm brand new in school. I'm freshman, whatever, first year, whatever you want to call it. I eventually would like to get a job up there. Is it possible I could come up and have lunch with you and ask you questions about the facility?" And really his whole intention was just to get to know us and let us get to know him. And over the through the article, you'll see that he would start to come up and visit at lunch. At one point, he rode his cool motorcycle up, which was probably enjoyable for him. It would have been a hassle for me because it's like a 3-hour drive. But he brought his motorcycle up to kind of show us. I built motorcycles as a hobby, and it let us know more about him. Hi, Allison. I'll get to you in just a sec. I got to finish up with the prior. But let us get to know him, and then he actually even came to an employee Christmas party one year, which was kind of cool. He hung out with us, and he kind of started in a way to become a part of the staff before he even applied. And so, and every semester he sent me his grades. He said, "Hey, look, I got all A's and 1B or whatever." And he said, "I'm just checking in with you, letting you know that I'm doing great. I still want to come up to your area." He was in Phoenix or Mesa, Arizona. I was up in Flagstaff, and he graduated. I knew when he was going to be graduating. I happened to have some open positions at the time. I notified him and I said, "Come on up, let's do an interview." And we interviewed him, and it wasn't just me plucking him. There were other people on the panel, and I always get the input of my supervisors and the other people on the team. And everybody had the consensus. Yeah, we know Joe. We know his grades. We know what he drives. We've interacted with him on a personal level. We're comfortable with him being a part of our team. And that's the story of Jackrabbit Joe. Do I have any tips on getting a job as a new graduate? I wish I could find the article, but some of the things I said was you need to research those facilities that you pick, because you can uncover if they are toxic in certain ways, which might mean you may not want to work there. So let's say you're in a populated area that has 5 hospitals. You then have the luxury of picking which one you want to apply to. Look up who the CEO and who's in the C-suite. So let's just say you pick Baptist Memorial or whatever. Look up on Baptist Memorial website who the C-suite is and the imaging director, and it should give you the C-suite is the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the CMO, the CXO. There's all these C's, right? Look them up on LinkedIn and look at their profiles and look and see how long they've been in that job. And if you see that the CEO, and you can also do a Google search for Baptist Memorial CEO LinkedIn, and that'll show you all the links to LinkedIn to anybody who has a profile there that has put Baptist Memorial CEO in their profile. So you can research how many CEOs have been at Baptist Memorial in the last 10 years. If it's one guy, that could be a really good thing. If it's 10 guys, that could be a really bad thing. High turnover is not a good sign. So do your research on the facilities that you're interested in hiring at and making sure that it looks like a stable environment. If there's any way to connect with some of the techs there, do that. If there is functions held by the hospital, like we used to have like an Oktoberfest kind of thing where we would have root beer chugging contests out on our patio, and it was in our cafeteria would move out to the patio in the summer months, and patients and family of patients and even locals would come and have lunch. So if there's a way to interact with them to find out how they interact and get to know them, kind of like Jackrabbit Joe did, give that a try. Get a job as a new graduate. You also need to do things like get some volunteer experience or something that you can offer up during your interview that shows that you've done your research, that you're willing to give back to the community a little bit. If you've done some 4-H work or leadership work or volunteer service, because as an administrator, of course you want to hire an excellent tech, but you also want to hire a well-rounded individual who's going to complement the community. So somebody who has done volunteer work, maybe they do ride-alongs with the local fire department or something, or they work at the soup kitchen, whatever it is. We're not necessarily interested in clock punchers. That's the kind of people that come in and they arrive on time and they clock out on time. But I've seen techs who say, well, I started my patient's BE or small bowel follow through at 5 till and I'm off on the hour. So if somebody else needs to finish this patient, I'm out of here. No, you stay with your patient through the entire exam and then you hand off. So we don't want clock punchers. We want people who are committed to the team and to the community. That's kind of off the top of my head, getting a job as a new grad. And you may have to take PRN jobs, right? I see a lot of new grads saying, I can't find a job anywhere. Well, there's a couple of reasons there. One, if you did a good job on your clinical rotations, you should have a pretty easy time getting into those facilities if there's a job open. If you didn't do a good job in your clinical rotations, maybe that's a hindrance and not looking favorably upon you working at that facility. What was I going to say? So clinical rotations. There's not always full-time options to new grads. What a lot of facilities do is they hire PRNs, and that way they kind of get to see how they work out on a smaller scale, and then they go, I like the way that person's working. When there's a full-time spot open, I'm going to put them in that instead of hiring somebody they don't know at all into that full-time position. Because like I said in another talk, hospitals invest a lot of time and money into new hires. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you don't know about as a tech. You think, well, I graduated, I got the skills, hire me. Well, they had to pay money to advertise the job. They had to spend money paying the employees to interview all these different people and spend time interviewing. They have to pay for new hire benefits. So there's just a lot of things that go into hiring. So it's in the best interest of the hospitals to retain staff and not have high turnover. So don't be afraid to jump out there and grab some PRNs throughout the area, and then wait your turn for a position to come open. And those coveted day shifts are the hardest to get, right? Because you may go from PRN to night shift to second shift to first shift. Because everybody, for the most part, wants the day shift. I liked the night shift for a lot of reasons. It made more money. There was less hassle, less drama, slower workflow. You could take your time and dedicate your time to patient care. But everybody's different. So I hope that helps Black Barbie on getting a job as a new graduate. And if I can remember, I'll post the link of this video back to the comment section of that where you asked that question. Allison, let's go back to professional stalking. Hey, there's nothing against that, right? I wouldn't go tell them. I actually have. I actually do say something about it, Mr. Allen. In an interview, if I did my research and let's just say I'm being interviewed by the CEO, and I found out that he got some awards at a previous job or something. Once the interview's moving along, I'm not going to blurt it out right in the beginning, but once it's moving along, I may slip something in that I have prepared about, I can help this department in this particular way because I can see that you're serious about patient safety, because I happen to catch that you got an award for outstanding patient safety facility. So congratulations. So you're stroking the boss while also showing you did your research. And if something does come out about that, like if they nervously go, oh, you've been stalking me, have you? Say, no, I'm just researching the facility because I want to make sure it's the right fit for both of us. I want to make sure that it's the environment I'm looking for and that I'm providing what you're looking for. So I did my research. It's that simple. That's my professional stalking comment. Allison, any organizational tips, study trips? Also earlier you mentioned speaking directly. Organizational tips, you mean getting your notes together and stuff. So I think I commented to you on Facebook my article about the article is about how to pass the ART board exams. But in that big beefy article, I list a whole bunch of study techniques like using an egg timer to get up every 20 minutes because you retain more if you study in bursts. So back in the day, me and my buddies, we'd go sit up all night long at Denny's and just have coffee and eat lightly so we didn't get tired from eating too much food. And we'd just cram all night long, ace our test in the morning, and then go crash and forget everything. But actually, at this point, that was for crap we didn't care about. Now you're learning about something you're going to have a career in and you need to know it. So study in short 20-minute increments, take a 5-minute break to stand up, walk around, get the blood flowing, and read that article about how to pass your ART board exams. And I'll see if I'm trying to remember what that was under. But organizational tips. My favorite, and it's kind of dumb, and it's old school, and it may even be a little bit grade schoolish. But I like those old school pins that you click and change the colors. Yeah, you rotate it around and change from blue to red to green to whatever. And I would just buy big 3-ring binders to write in, or not binders, but notebooks. And each subject I would use a different color. And that way I would recognize by color what subject I was in. And it helped me to kind of separate the material out in a way. Because what will help you study the most organizationally when you're learning, there's lots of ways people learn, right? There's visually, there's auditory, there's hands-on. I gotta do a chest X-ray to learn how to remember it. Like techniques. I don't know if I'm on screen or not. Techniques. We used to go 70, 60, 50 was the techniques for 70 kV for the shoulder, 60 for an elbow, and 50 for a wrist. Of course, it's may change now, maybe less, because machines are a lot better. This is 20 years ago. But that visual representation, hands used to be 50 at 5, elbows used to be, 60 at 8 or whatever, and shoulders 70 at 15 or something. And then, of course, grid changed a lot. I don't want to get in a debate about techniques, but I'm showing you a visual learning technique versus some people. There's somebody in our Facebook group named Ann who used to make audio recordings of her class, and she would listen to them on her commutes because she could learn auditory and hear it and absorb it and understand it. And then there's just the hands-on. Like I have a skeleton in the corner of my bedroom. It's just there full time. I like to position skeletons and look at things from a skeletal view. If I'm thinking about doing an AP oblique and a lateral hand, I like to move my skeleton around and look at it, because when you're looking at your hand, you're seeing tissue and everything, but when it's just the bones there, it helps you visualize. Superimposition. I get it now. I can't see the base of that phalange. Now I know why I need to separate it out farther. So you have to figure out, Allison, what your learning methodology is. I've got a skeleton, plug-in skeleton on my blog. There's one on Amazon for like $60. That's the positioning one that I have here. I've given a couple away. Maybe it's time that I give another away in a contest. But it's is it Mr. Bones, something like that. Do a here. Let me do. Well, did I find how to pass your exams? So this is the one with all the study techniques that I was talking about that you got to check out about the different methodologies. I go through spaced repetition and how to use it, force multipliers. That means using different techniques together to make them even better, like using one as a catalyst. There's your sanctum, meaning where you study, your bat cave, your hideout, where you do your studying, how to set one up, how to set your target of focus, using the right tools to study. Don't let people bust in on you or take your time away from you. Recovery time, and lots of things about how you study in a particular place. And then study guides. I go through where to find the actual test content, talk about Appleton and Lang, talk about Mosby's, exam day routine, all kinds of things for studying. But we were moving on to something else. What was it? Anybody remember? Let's see. Sorry, let me frog in my throat. Allison, sorry, speaking directly to those you may have issues with. Okay. And students. Okay, so it's kind of the same when you're having an issue with other techs or students, right? It's kind of the same approach whether you're a tech, whether you're a student and it's a school issue, or you're an employee and it's a work issue. The best thing you can do is confront that person head on. And this is the same advice for bullies. Because the more you ignore a bully and let them get away with what they're doing, the more they'll think it's okay to do it, and it could escalate on their side. So if you're a student like Allison and there's another student giving you issues, you might start talking about that issue with somebody you trust to kind of put your game plan together, right? We can do a Zoom meeting. You can talk to your parents. You can talk to a big brother or sister. You can talk to somebody that you trust and say, here's what I perceive is going on, because you're only seeing it from one perspective, right? There's always that other perspective. And talking to somebody about it outside of the situation may bring to light some new information. So the first thing to do is to have a plan on what you want to say to that person, because if you wait till you two spark and then you go off, you're going to say the wrong things. So talk about it with somebody else, kind of get an idea. Well, what is it are they being passive aggressive? Are they saying things to you that they are trying to pretend like it's not a big deal, but you really feel like it's a personal dig? Or, what's the issue? So get a plan, talk it out with somebody you trust, and then you can either just call the person out, and it's always, what's the old saying, praise in public, condemn in private, or whatever the word is for opposite of praise. So you don't want to just blurt out, hey, let's talk about this problem. You want to say, do you mind if we step outside for just a minute, or step into the break room for a minute, or hey, I'd really like to talk to you about something. Do you have a minute? And then remove yourselves from the environment where other people might hear, and then present that issue. So I was thinking about the way that you always take the portable chest x-rays when they come off the printer. When there might be 4 exams sitting there, you always take the easiest one. And I think it would be fair if we all shared the work equally, and maybe some other people need practice getting in those chest x-rays. Think about how you're going to present whatever that issue is. Line out what you think the issue is. Tell them that it makes you uncomfortable. Either ask them just to stop it, or offer alternatives if you can think of any. Hey, maybe we just rotate taking every other requisition off the printer, or however you're doing it electronically. Maybe we just rotate each one so that we get a wide variety of experience that way. Whatever your solution is, address it head on with the person, and either your main goal is to let them know that you don't appreciate it. And you can even say, look, I'm just bringing this to you. I'm not talking to the clinical instructor. I'm not talking to the teacher, boss, whatever. I think we're both adults and we can handle this. And I'm just letting you know that it makes me uncomfortable. Don't use words like, I hate it when you do this, or, it's jerky of you to do this. You want to use neutral terms, neutral terminology, and say, when you perform this particular action, it makes me uncomfortable in this way. Maybe what we can do is this solution, or, it makes me uncomfortable. I hope you can find another way to address that, or something that basically lets them know you're not comfortable with it and you'd like it to stop. And that's really the whole first conversation. It used to be, I had an HR person that would say, here's what you've done and how we perceive it. And if you don't change your ways, there's going to be repercussions. But we don't do that in the first meeting anymore. It's all about now the methodology is coach. Then there's an issue. Then there's a write-up or whatever it needs to be. So we want to give people the opportunity to fix and grow and learn. So we're just educating. Here's what's happening. Here's how I perceive it. How do you perceive it? Maybe when you're grabbing all the chest X-rays, it's because you're not comfortable doing something else, or don't suggest they suck or whatever. Just try to find out, well, how do you? Here's how I perceive it. How it makes me feel. What can we do about that? How do you feel about that? Are you noticing this? Does this make you uncomfortable? Get their perspective and just end it there. And then if it keeps happening, then that's a whole nother conversation. You can go back to them and you can say, hey, I told you I didn't like this and you're still doing it. I'm going to be an adult here and give you one more opportunity to make a course correction. And if it happens a third time, I have no other option but to go to administration. Or if you think that person's a big enough bully that you don't want to address them a second time, you can go to administration. You don't have to put yourself in harm's way or whatever. Maybe you're super non-confrontational, which some people are. You've already gone to them once and it didn't stop the behavior. You can go straight to the next leader up, but you don't want to leapfrog. Not that you won't get results, because you will, but you're going to alienate that person in the middle, and that could have negative repercussions on your relationship with that person. Now, if you know that problem you're having, that person you're having problems with is buddy with the next level up, you may escalate and say, I would have gone to them, but they are next door neighbors or they're high school buddies or whatever. And that's why I brought it to you. But that's going to get back to that supervisor. That director is going to say, they may not. Depends on how they handle things, but they may say, hey, look, your tech came to me because they felt like you wouldn't deal this straight on because you're friends with Joe Bob. That's probably not going to sit too well. But if they're mature, they'll go, okay, I understand. I'll work with that person. They should call you both into a room and say, tell me what's going on. So, Allison, I hope that, so in the school setting, you address your peer students, and then you go to your person that runs your program, your teacher. If it's an issue, if you're a student and it's happening at your clinical site, you either tell your clinical instructor at the site or you tell your clinical instructor that checks up on you from the school. You can confront, if you're a student, you can confront the tech because we're all adults. You should be allowed to say something in a professional manner about a concern to another tech. But if you feel that will cause you issues, you can go to your teacher or your clinical instructor at either school or the workplace and say, this tech and I are having this issue. I wasn't quite sure how to handle it. I'm a tech. I didn't know. What do you recommend? So, you color-coded your stuff too. Okay, so we could probably talk more about that, Allison, if you wanted to, but that in a nutshell is kind of, from an administrative perspective, we always expect you to, we hope that you try to work it out yourself, because a lot of times it can be worked out that way. And then it's one less thing on the administrator's plate, right? And it gives you a little bit of ownership. It gives you a sense of pride because you took it on head on, and it holds the other person accountable. And if you just go tell the director and they come down on there, well, this person's a tattletale, and now I got to be extra careful. It just avoids a lot of things when you can do that on your own. So I'm going to jump back to the last live session real quick, because Nignog said, if you were a brand new tech, newly employed, what would be your first move? Would you immediately start training? Well, you probably won't get that opportunity. It'd be nice. So a lot of things come to mind when you say that, Nignog. One, the other tech's going to be pissed if they've been waiting to get cross-trained and you're a new hire and you get cross-trained or get offered the opportunity. I guess personally, if you're, so old school tech would say you need to learn your modality the best that you can first before you move on. An open thinker would say, when a door of opportunity is open, go through it before it closes, right? So if you're a new hire, like you're saying, a brand new tech, newly employed, what would be your first move? Would you immediately start training into new body? If they're offering it, yes. But you got to kind of be careful, because let's say you're an X-ray tech and they say, hey, we want to cross-train you on CT because we want you to do both. You can learn both, but know that they're going to put you wherever they need you. So if you get shoved into CT for 3 months straight to learn CT, because that's about how long it takes to learn CT, and then all of a sudden somebody calls off an X-ray and they throw you back an X-ray, you may have some catching up to do. You'll remember it all, but it'll kind of be a stumbling thing for a little bit. So I'm just warning you that when you cross train, when you put on that second hat, and I've done it, I'm a quad modality tech, you are expected to know both. You'll be expected to know X-ray and CT once you're done training in CT. So administration has the ability, because on your job description somewhere, it inevitably says, and other duties as assigned. That's their way of saying, we're not going to pay any extra, but we're going to make you do other crap. So you could be in CT for a while, and all of a sudden they go, hey, we're having issues in X-ray. You need to go back over there for a week. Once you cross-train, you're responsible for both, unless you have a unique, explicit understanding with your employer that once you cross over, that's it, which is rare these days. But in really big facilities where you have really big departments, I've worked in level 1 trauma places where CT barely ever even talked to X-ray, let alone tried to go over and shoot an X-ray. Everybody had their own thing they did, and they stayed completely busy, and there wasn't a lot of cross-mingling. But anymore, they're trying to cross-train multimodality techs, move people around, share, that kind of thing, even within systems. Hospital in this town has a shortage due to COVID, so the other sister hospital of the same system will send techs to that town, and it's completely different equipment. So should you take that opportunity to cross-train? Yes, but should you also take the time to learn your native modality the best you can? Yes. So an old school tech would say, don't put your toe in that pond until you know exactly what you're doing in X-ray. But let me clue you in a little bit on the world of radiology. It's always changing, and it's always advancing, and there's always new equipment. I mean, look at what we've done from X-ray film to DR, or from CR to DR in 30 years, 20 years. So you will always have new things to learn, and that's why it's important that you have. That's why we have CEUs. That's why you have continuing education credits to try to keep you up on what the changes are. So Nig Nog, if you can get cross training, take it. Just kind of do a little research on the side and find out, are there other people waiting? Is this going to cause me issues? Not that should necessarily stop you, but you should know. I know Tom's been trying to get into CT for like 3 years is what I'm told. I know I'm new, but I've heard. And now I'm being offered, which must mean they like me better. Whatever the reason, now I may have issues with Tom. So, how you address that's up to you, but that's my 2 cents on cross-training. I've told the story before, but I was an X-ray student on a clinical rotation. In my control area in X-ray, nothing was going on, and I was interested in going to ultrasound school before I even graduated X-ray school, right? I was plotting. Here's my career ladder: X-ray, CT, ultrasound, echo, billionaire, right? That was my plan. And so one day in X-ray rotations, there was nothing going on, and I laid out all the school paperwork for ultrasound school, and I'm looking over prerequisites to get in, and here's the application, and I'm looking at all this stuff, planning my next step up the ladder, and I got in trouble. The staff didn't even say anything to me. I got called in the next day. I was on campus to my program director or whoever it was, and they said, look, we got a call from your CI or a tech or whatever, and they said, instead of doing exams, you were sitting at a counter applying to ultrasound school, and we really feel you should be focusing on X-ray. You're in X-ray school right now, and you should be focusing on X-ray. And then I educated them politely. Actually, no, I wasn't avoiding anything. There was nothing going on. It was about 10 minutes is all I had it out for, and I stated my case. So it's always good to be looking forward, but just know that told me, and I knew who it was. That person's jealous because they can't get out of X-ray. They can't get promoted to the next level. It was a tech that was kind of the right hand to the lead tech. So it taught me some things about that person and how they're hateful and spiteful and jealous. But it also told me to keep some of my things maybe for break time or whatever. Maybe not whip it out in front of everybody. They don't need to know my intentions. So, always look for that next opportunity and be preparing for what that might be. But also know that it's perfectly acceptable to spend your entire career in general radiography. I know plenty of techs that have done nothing more than general x-ray their whole career and they're completely happy. There's nothing wrong with that. Find what you like and stick with that. Don't be afraid to learn a little more. X-ray techs can learn how to do CT heads and maybe help out. If you're a night shift tech in x-ray, you can help do a head while the CT tech's doing another trauma or something like that. But spending a little bit of time in these other modalities can also cue you into if you like them. There's some modalities that I wouldn't want to do. I just didn't find them attractive. And there's other ones that I did find interesting. I liked IR, but I didn't like standing on my feet all day. I really liked ultrasound. I really liked CT. I really liked X-ray. So there you go. Nig nog. Zesty. Howdy, Ron. Just going through my third semester in school. 2 to go. Thanks for all the content you make. You also answered some of my questions by email, so thanks for that. Anytime. If I already have a liberal arts type bachelor's degree, am I a decent candidate for management position in the future? Or is a medical rad related bachelor's? No, any bachelor's, nobody cares. And they don't care what the grade was. They don't care what your GPA was. None of that matters. All that matters is that you got the degree. Now, let's say on the off chance that you're applying for a manager job and there's 2 of you with bachelor's degrees and all other things being the same, which is highly unlikely because there's tech background, there's interpersonal skills, soft skills, there's how you did during your interview. There's a lot of things that go into hiring if it's being done correctly. But let's just say all things are equal and you and somebody else have bachelor's degree, then maybe if your bachelor's was in underwater BB stacking and this person's was in biology, which applies to radiology, that could tip the scales if all other things were equal. But yours is a bachelor's degree in liberal arts. Actually, that's what mine was. I actually had a Bachelor of Science because I'd taken a bunch of biology, microbiology, zoology, chemistry, but I ended up with a degree in psychology. So my Bachelor of Science in psychology was enough with my ART license to get a clinical manager position at a level 1 trauma, which then led to a director position in another system. So the degree has never mattered. What's starting to matter in the upper levels of radiology management, starting to matter, is getting the CRA credential from the AHRA, the Certified Radiology Administrator. Now, I know plenty of seasoned medical directors that'll say, you can't measure how good I am based on what certificates I have. But you could also say, why would it hurt to take it and prove your knowledge, right? So I have taken prep classes for the CRA, but I've never taken the CRA, mostly because it's like $500. And I don't think about it unless I'm applying for a new job. And then I go, oh, I probably should get that because it'll make me look better. But then I end up getting the job anyway, and then I don't need it. And I'm like, I'll put that on the back burner. So don't worry about your Bachelor of Liberal Arts. It's a bachelor's. The next focus is if you want to go any higher, where can you go? I took my Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Arizona State and got into Weber State into their MSRS program. That's a Master of Science in Radiologic Science. And all Weber State looked for was any bachelor's from an accredited university and an X-ray license, so the ART. Those 2 together get you into the MSRS program. And then I took that MSRS program and I found Nebraska Methodist, who has a doctorate in healthcare leadership. And all they required was a master's degree from an accredited university and an interview. And I actually went into that, and there was a bunch of nurses in there. I was the only radiology person, but I ended up with a doctorate. I just got it last month. Yay! Doctorate of Healthcare Leadership and Education. So it's up to you to pursue that higher education, and none of it will stop you from getting that director job. They won't say, well, what was your GPA on that bachelor's degree, or that kind of thing. So there's Zesty's question. Detective Awesome. Okay, so now on to the new one. So Mr. Allen's hanging in there. Good job. Keep it up. Allison Allison. Oh, let's find a skeleton for Allison. So I'll do a shameless plug if any of you are still online or anybody joins in the future. If you go to my blog and you click on any of my links that take you to Amazon, I'll actually make a few pennies if you buy something from there. So I show the skeleton, positioning skeleton, actually gave one away last year during COVID. And here's an article that I wrote on it, best home study, because during COVID, a lot of students weren't allowed to go to clinicals, and it really sucked. I felt really bad for them because that's where you learn everything. So I went out and found one. Here's somebody did their own little x-ray machine. But I started playing around with ones from Amazon. And this one has movable joints, shoulder, elbow, wrist, knee, and mandible. And, of course, the head. And did I link to him? I think I linked to him. Yeah. So here he is, Crazy Bones. That's what he's called, Crazy Bones. Oh, no, currently unavailable. That might be a Halloween thing. But Crazy Bones here is completely movable. You can put him in all different kinds of positions. He's a full 5 feet tall. And he stays in position for the most part. So you can sit him in a chair and you can put him out for a lateral elbow and he'll stay in that position. So I highly recommend that for a visual aid. And we're going to have to figure out how to find more. But you get the idea. Some of them aren't movable, so you got to be careful. But this guy was terrific. So that did kill my link to my blog. So we'll just open it up on a new one here. Big fan of Disney, if you can't tell, especially my wife, big fan of Disney land. Well, anything Disney, really. So, back to where we were here. Let me open the window back up. Shoot, it's going to take me a minute to get back to the right window. That's the problem with opening too many windows. I'm just going to start closing some. Amazon, Poison Play. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. Ask any questions you have while I'm looking up, trying to figure out where I was. My voice is starting to go from actually talking for an hour and a half. Can you believe that? Jeez, I had a lot of stuff open. Well, let's just go back to this one. That was the Bernard article I was going over in the last video for a Redditor. What I'm trying to do is get to, right there. Okay. Allison says that makes sense. Good. Thank you for clarifying on the cross-training. Cool. Annie's retirement journey. While in x-ray school, my rotation through MRI sealed it for me. I went straight to MRI, eventually getting registered in that and CT. Right? So I got lucky in CT. I had weekend clinicals. And my x-ray trainer, tech, CI guy, Captain James Shepard, was a CT tech. And so when we weren't doing x-rays, he would train me on CT. So I graduated x-ray school and got hired as a CT tech and did both x-ray and CT through the places that I did my clinical rotations. So it's possible to even learn an additional modality when you're a student, believe it or not. And then I got out of that, or I stayed in that, and I went back to school right away for ultrasound. And then I hit my boss up for echo training, and he said, I really need you to learn MRI because we have a traveler and he's costing us an arm and a leg. If you could cross-train an MRI, that would be great, which was awkward because that meant he knew I was learning from him to replace him, but he was a traveler, so whatever. So I ended up learning MR and X-ray, CT, MR, and ultrasound. So Annie, I'm glad you found what you liked. Always look around. Each modality is so different. They do, some sit, some stand, some are very invasive, some are not invasive at all. I loved ultrasound. I loved doing OB scans. I loved seeing the babies, working with pregnant mothers. It was a blast. Let's see. Mr. Allen had mentioned the skeletons are on Amazon. Annie mentioned there's numerous job openings where I live. Yeah, so that's always Northwest Florida. Yeah, so that's always interesting to watch those conversations like on our Facebook group and stuff, because you'll always see somebody that says, I just graduated and I can't find a job. Well, we got to figure out why, because, if you're in a highly populated area and you got 15 x-ray schools, it might be a little difficult to get a job because you got all those other people competing for the jobs against you. So you might have to start looking outside of that city in the smaller towns for a job. Or are they not being realistic with themselves about how they came across in their clinicals? Because we've all seen those students that suck or that do stupid things. I walked in on a guy once who was in his clinical rotation. I went to check on a tech, and a student was with him, and the tech was returning a patient back to a room, and the student was sitting there and had his iPad out and was watching an Amazon movie. And there was a naked man on the screen doing a handstand, right? So all you saw was his butt. But is that appropriate? Is that appropriate? And then is that appropriate on your clinical rotation? And so I brought that up to the program director and said, your student's over here watching, not only is he watching movies on his clinical rotation, but it's inappropriate stuff. And so he got pulled, and then he got put back in somehow. So after I left, he came back. So anyway, be careful what you do when you're on your clinical rotation. And radiology is a small world. I've been on conference trips in Chicago or Nashville or wherever, and I'll run into old bosses, old supervisors, old techs, people from 20 years ago at these things. And so it's a small world. And that's also why Annie brings up jobs. That's also why on the Facebook group, I welcome recruiters. So I'll let recruiters post jobs to help everybody out. And I'll let techs who have side jobs, and I talk about this frequently, find something on the side to do so that you're not just totally all eggs in one basket of radiology. So any techs that make their own markers, their own t-shirts, their own masks, whatever, I let them advertise on the Facebook group too to foster their second income, their side gig. But I don't let vendors come on and post about their latest CT machine or something like that, because for the most part, if we need that, first of all, none of you techs care about that. That's what the administrators deal with. And as administrators, we get plenty of people calling us at work to tell us what's going on. I don't need them in our Facebook group. So know that if you're interested in jobs, you can always go check out the Facebook group and see what's posted there. Jeffrey, Annie, kindly share these opportunities, especially for ultrasound. So Jeff, what you should know is there's a great Facebook group on ultrasound, and it's called Sonographers Do It in the Dark, I think is what it's called, and super active, great administrators on that group that keep it clean and tidy. Because one thing none of us likes is when somebody new gets in and says, here's my chest x-ray, what do you see? We don't do that, and those people get banned, and we delete the images. So Sonographers Do It in the Dark does a great job of monitoring the group, and I really like these Facebook groups. I wish they had been around long ago, because I see people on the night shift who will get on there and say, hey, I got an order for a blah 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 exam, and I haven't done one since school. Does anybody remember the technique? Or does anybody remember which probe is the best, or what setting should I tweak on my ultrasound machine, or whatever? And they're getting help from other techs who know how to use that same machine within an hour of posting it. So Jeffrey, make sure you check out that ultrasound Facebook group. And if you don't like Facebook, I get it. I understand why. You can, there's a good Reddit. The only radiology subreddit is /radiology. I don't think there's really a lot of other ones worth going into out there. But Allison, any tips for my first clinical assignment? I'm already showing up to class an hour early, but the clinical aspect has me nervous about what to expect and what is expected of me. First off, and very important, is cool, Jeff. Be at your assigned area when your shift starts, maybe even a few minutes early. There's nothing worse than the person that if your shift starts at 7 and you show up at 7 and you're like, hey, I'm here. And then you head off and change into your scrubs and come back 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later with a coffee in your hand because you went down to the cafeteria. Don't be that tech. Show up and be ready at your station a few minutes early, at worst case scenario on the hour. There's nothing worse than the people that come straggling in because they, there's always, I had techs that would drive up to the door, run in, punch in, and then go back to their car and then drive out and park and then come in and then they change into their scrubs. And it's like, I get it. I've been there. I get it. I've been there. But you have to grow up at some point and you have to accept responsibility. And if you're not getting to work on time, you have to figure out why and start pre-planning something. Maybe that's just not the right shift for you. Maybe this 5 a.m. shift is just not your thing. Maybe you need to be on a second shift or a third shift. But the first thing I would say is make sure you're at your station and ready to go at the time you're supposed to be there. And then for the most part, that's a whole separate talk we can have, right? But for the most part, just be ready for all the techs to have their own opinion about everything. And one is going to take you to do a chest x-ray and tell you that it's 90 at 5. And then the next person you go with, you're going to set it at 90 at 5. And they're going to go, what are you using that technique for? It should be 110 at 10. Where's your grid? And, there's just all these. Everybody has their own way of doing it. And that's okay. Because ultimately, when you graduate, you will take all the stuff you learn and make your own way of doing it. Now here's where protocols come in to play. There should be a book, either a manual book or an online manual in every department with protocols, and that protocols tells you how to do an exam. And if they have a chest protocol, a PA chest standing at the wall bucky protocol, because you got to be specific, that says do it at 110 at 10 or whatever the technique is on your equipment, unless you have that protocol in place, anybody can shoot anything they want to do in any fashion. And a lot of hospitals work that way. If there's a serious Lean Six Sigma quality control person in that department or related to that department, then they'll have a protocol book that has all that, because the beauty of that is standardizing means consistent quality images, not a bunch of this crap. And as directors, we have to look at all that crap and go, okay, how come Bob's x-ray is always out of range on his S value or whatever, and how come, then we got to go talk, what's going on? How come you're shooting too hot. You need to bring it down. If you have a protocol book, then you just say, hey, Bob, you're out of your S values off. Go check the protocol. Make sure you're following protocol. And after a while, you don't tell Bob that anymore. You start writing him up because he's not following protocol. But know, when you're new to your clinical, that everybody's going to have a different way of doing it. See if there's a protocol book, because if there is, and then you get that rogue that says, well, I've always done it this way and that's how I do it. When the protocol says something different, don't correct that tech. Just know the proper way for that hospital, for that department to do that exam is what that protocol says. Let them do their thing, whatever. And if you're doing it and you follow the protocol and they correct you, say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just following the protocol book. Say it however you need to say it. But they'll get it. They should say, okay, we'll do it however you think, as long as it comes out in the quality. But that's not how I do it. Well, fine, you're doing it the wrong way, Bob. So protocol books are very handy in that they call out positioning, technique, how to hang it. Sometimes different radiologists like things hung differently, all that stuff. So I would say that's my two biggest things: is be there on time, maybe even a little bit early. And it sounds like you're already doing that. And then just know that everybody's going to do everything in a different way, and be willing to accept it and roll with it. I kept it was an old phone book about this big that was tabbed alphabetically. And if I went to do a chest x-ray with somebody, I'd open to the C and I would write Bob, 90 at 5, PA, 40, or whatever the position, the technique, the tech, whatever it was. And I kept them that way. So The next time I went to a chest X-ray, I could open it up and I go, okay, Sally's doing this one, but I can see Bobby's doing 95. What's Sally do? Sally does 95. So there's two people that do it. So this must be pretty close to what everybody does. And you keep track of your techniques that way in a little pocketbook. And then I think just to generally sum up, the last thing would be prepared to stay late if necessary. Don't be that person that, if you do have an appointment, say that. I have a doctor's appointment, my kid's babysitter's leave, whatever it is, say I have an appointment at 5, maybe even bring that up before 5, maybe at 4 o'clock, 4:30, 4:45, say, hey, we're getting ready to go do this cross table lateral hip, and it could be a bit. I just want you to know I have to be out of here at 5 because I have XYZ, and I'll stay as long as I can, and then they know, okay, well, as opposed to you just kind of slipping out, right? You don't ever want to do that. So I hope that helps. Annie agreed. Do not tell a tech how to do anything. You'll have a tough time with that clinic. Yeah, and there's nothing worse than that person that says, well, where I came from, we used to blah, 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 right? Well, we're not where you came from. We don't care how they did it where you came from. We do it the way we do it, and you're the new person, so you do it our way. I mean, that's the general mentality. So don't be that guy. So, again, time is flying by. I think we're pushing an hour again. So that's 2 1-hour segments I've done today. I hope they're helpful. If you have any more questions, post them real quick. I'll try and get on them. And then I got to get on to other stuff. So don't forget, hit the like button, right? That's important. And subscribe so we can get the membership up, which helps in the algorithm. So more people that are searching for these topics shows up in their search results. And I am just trying to bring this stupid Facebook group up. So there's the Facebook group. The Radiologic Technologist, it's up here. I can even take that maybe and plop it down here. I see a Nig. Hang on just a sec. And then there's the YouTube, right? Oh, well, we're on YouTube, so you know that channel. Oh, LinkedIn, I guess, if you wanted to see that one. I think actually, if you go to my About page, I link all this stuff. Go to the blog. Come on. There's me during a talk, and my LinkedIn profile, my resume. It hasn't been updated in a while, but there's my resume. I have an article about resumes and how X-ray tech should do resumes. I have examples of bad resumes and good resumes. I share real ones with the names blotted out. Here's some of the lectures I've given. So here's the YouTube channel, the Facebook group, the LinkedIn forum, and I've even got Pinterest and Instagram, but I never do that stuff. Not enough time. So Nick Nog jumped on and said, can you be a traveling tech? That's just an X-ray. Absolutely. That's probably needed more than anything, especially during COVID when people were going out for mandatory 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, if they tested positive. You could make big bucks in traveling. I've got articles on Traveler. Don't be afraid of that search button. Go in there and put travel. I interviewed a guy that runs a travel agency, and he chimed in on this article. I think he even wrote part of it. So how much do they make? And this is his answer. It depends on the bill rate and all that stuff. But you can make double what you're making in a hospital as a traveler. They pay for your, of course they pay for your travel. I knew an echo tech that had an RV that they would pay him a stipend for a hotel expense, and he would just use that to pay his RV payment. And he would travel around and park his RV in the parking lot of the, I should change Dr. Jones, you're right. But he basically, every hospital for the most part has hookups for family to come visit and hook their RVs in from out of state. This guy, this echo tech, would drive his RV, park it, have free hookups. His RV payment was made for the hotel stipend. He got a $40 a day food stipend, and he would eat in the cafeteria dirt cheap and pocket the rest. And plus, he's making double what a normal tech makes. So if you can travel, I highly recommend it. I'm starting to look into it now, but I'm just not quite sure. There's still some things I want to do here that would get in the way of that. But I've always, in fact, that was the ultimate goal of my wife. She's an X-ray tech. She went to X-ray school. Her first semester was my last semester in ultrasound school. And our plan, once the kids were grown and gone, was to be traveling techs together. But, yeah, you can be traveling as an X-ray tech. You got to change your name. Yep, I do need to change this. It's so much work to keep up with all this stuff. That's why I've kind of switched to answering questions live. It's just there's no editing. There's no worrying about all that stuff. And anyway, I got to run. Yeah, the shortage is continuing. So my mom teaches in a medical program that does allied health stuff like this. She's in the Phoenix market, and she's telling me that people are dropping out of programs by the droves because they don't want to get the COVID shot or they don't want to be forced to get a shot. So enrollment is down, and students are dropping out because they want to go do something outside of healthcare. They don't want to be. It may not be the shot. It may that they don't want to be exposed to all this issue. And so the shortage, I mean, if you think about it, we've always had a shortage. We've never had enough techs. When was the last time you worked in an department and said, we are fully staffed and I am so happy, right? Because that never happens. Especially when you get out to a rural location, it seems like you're always, 2 years ago in my area, in my region, we were 13 ultrasound techs short in 9 hospitals. So I think there will always be a shortage, but and I think, I don't know, Annie, you'll have to tell us more. Oh, wait. You're the same Annie from the Facebook group under a different name. Raybon? So you guys listen to Annie. She knows what she's talking about. She's been doing this a long time. So maybe Annie can share in our Facebook group a little bit more about what she's seeing on the travel dinero. I haven't traveled, but I know some people that do. Yeah, I noticed your long hair in your picture. I recognized you. So I'm super appreciative, by the way, Annie, of all the comments you make on the Facebook group and all the answers you give. That's the whole reason I started that Facebook group and started blogging. Was back when you and I started, there was not a lot of people we could go to ask questions. And it seemed like back in the day, the techs were a little less eager to answer our questions. And so you and I mean, we're helping countless people answering questions on that Facebook group. And it's nice to get back. And I appreciate all your help. And I don't know that I've ever said that to you on the group. So now that I know you're on here, at least I get to thank you on the video. So it was required for my entrance into the program. Allison, what were you talking about? Oh, did I miss one? Get us a list of the best travel agencies. Well, you should probably Google search that, but go on my Facebook group and start looking. They post in there. I would say, well, ask Annie that question, but who did I used to hear from all the time? I'd have to look it up. But there are some staffing agencies that have been around for a long, long time. In fact, I bet. I don't know where I would go to that would be the fastest, but there's a couple that, geez, who are they? Anyway, ask that on the Facebook group. What are some good travel agencies? And you'll get responses on there for sure. There's a Facebook group for travelers. Oh, that's good to know. If you can link it on this in this comment section, Annie, that'd be awesome. Nick Nog, do you have to get the shot to be a tech? So, tough question. Okay, thanks, Annie. You don't necessarily have to. From what I'm hearing, the schools are making it mandatory. But I know, at least my local hospital said it was mandatory, but it gives you exemption ability. So I know people that have gotten out on religious exemption, and I know people that have gotten out because they're young and fertile and newly married and are attempting to have children. And so those are two that I know for sure people have used to get exempted out of. And it used to be harder. I tried religious exemption for the flu shot like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they just laughed at me. But now they're taking it more seriously. So you have to ask the school that you want to attend, do you have to get the shot to be a tech? So you got two things there. If you're new into the field, you have to find out if your school is requiring it, and then once you become a tech, is the hospital going to require it? So you kind of got two layers of stuff to go through. Yeah, Allison, all the hospitals in Atlanta, but they should be offering some kind of option. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's always the religious. There's like the flu. There was people that were allergic to I don't know, people that were allergic to had egg allergy or something had problems with the flu shot vaccine or something. There's always something in there. But then they came out with the oral swab for the flu. And anyway, tough question. You'll have to do some research on that one. So, are we good, gang? Let me know. Let me know in the Facebook or in this YouTube comment section. Let me know what you want to talk about in these videos. Let me know. I'm still trying to do regular Saturday live Q&As. It's just I've had two of my daughters got married in the past month. Actually, three got married in the past 8 weeks. I graduated a few weeks ago. There's just been a ton going on. But you're welcome, Allison. I'm trying to get on a weekend schedule, either Saturday or Sunday, where I get on and do a live Q&A. It's just hard because I've gotten on and with no notice, only one or two people join, and I don't feel like I'm most effective that way. I try to get on the Facebook group and say I'm going to be getting on in a couple hours. So if you remember the Facebook group, you at least have a heads up. But if you think of topics, you can always leave a comment about a topic to discuss, and I can do a video on it. Like the last one I did for the Redditor who quit their job today because it was such a toxic work environment. I can do videos and brain dump what I think about it. And I think that's it. So 2 hours to YouTube question and answer today. Hope that helps. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Drop in and say hi on the Facebook group. I'll warn you on LinkedIn, we're not super active. I did add Doctor on there. Was it Nignog saying that? Or Mr. Allen was saying that? I did add it there, but I think this is the group. Radiology Technologist Career Discussion, Advancement, and Mentorship. I used to be pretty big into LinkedIn 4 or 5 years ago. Not so much anymore. It just kind of has turned into another Facebook to me. People post about themselves and what they're doing, what their latest accomplishment is, and just seems kind of self-gratuitous. I don't know. But it can be a good place to get a job. If you put, to me, you should go on here and put your resume, and recruiters will find you. That's how I got my last director job. A recruiter found me on LinkedIn, contacted me on LinkedIn, said, would you be interested in working in this part of the country? And that's how the dialogue started. So if you want, you can look at my profile and see what I put on there. I like to put talks that I've given. I like to put, of course, your job resume and what you do at the job. I used to list when I was a tech, I would list the equipment that I used at each job so people would know if I'm interviewing for an X-ray tech job and it's a Siemens house and I had Siemens at my work, I would put on my resume that I'm comfortable with a Siemens whatever. And you can find out what these departments have by looking at their websites or even reaching out to some of the techs through their LinkedIn profiles and see what the equipment is. And then put your education on there, your certifications on there. Your volunteer experience is always nice to see. Recommendations. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask people for recommendations. This was a good friend of mine, Scott. We got to be friends as he went from being a police officer to an X-ray tech. And you put in your accomplishments. You can put in any awards you have. You can things that you have been published in, organizations you participated in. LinkedIn is just an online resume, and I have an article on that too. I think you can go here and say LinkedIn, and it's either an article on the blog, LinkedIn for radiologic technologists. So I did a whole article on your profile and using it to find jobs and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna take off. You guys are awesome. Let me know if you need anything. I'm here for you. Talk to you later. Have a great, what is this? This is Friday. Have a great weekend. Happy weekend eve.